What's up, JEFusion fans? Welcome back to another video. Today we are going to talk about Gozyuger, and actually, as of this recording, episode 44 came out. We finally see the original Sentai Origa Rangers Origa Red make his appearance alongside Ninja Red. And considering like Ninja Red and who its warrior is gonna be, it's actually someone you might expect to appear, but I'm not gonna talk about episode 44 just yet because in between like episode 40, like the last time I talked about the Gojuger, I believe. So there have been many things that have happened. So in this video, I'm basically going to recap the important parts of episodes 41 to 43. So just in case, I might have to say that there will be some spoilers going ahead, so make sure you catch up on the latest Gojuger episodes before you continue watching this video. Otherwise, enjoy. So let's start off with episode 41. And there are actually some things that I might have to talk about in this episode that are really important to the plot. So basically, we see the appearance of what is said to be the final no one to appear in the show, who by lore actually was the first no one to appear. Let me explain. So first, I would like to introduce the Monozukuri no one. So the creator or the maker no one who basically makes things. So I believe Sumino and Sumino finds this you know uh, this no one. I think she was with Mashiro at that time, if I remember correctly. So Hoeru and Kinjiro were out shopping with Aoi, trying to buy some gifts, I guess, for coming Christmas and New Year. But again, they suddenly find Sumino and Mashiro, with this no one, but it seems to be doing nothing. Like, Sumino even pokes a stick at it, but it's not moving. But once it sees Aoi, the no one creates like a toy car as a gift, you know, like showing us that this no one is not as harmful or not as aggressive as its other compatriots. I'm not sure if predecessor is the right word, considering that according to Tega Jun herself, the Monozukuri no one was the first no one. Now, this is actually an interesting piece of lore to talk about. Uh, so according to Tega Jun herself, Monozukuri no one was actually the one who created the Briden and Tegajun herself. So all this time, so Tegajun was actually looking for, a suitable pilot, even though we see, Kuon inside the cockpit more than once. But ultimately, Tegajun's goal is to find the perfect pilot for her, meaning that it's not actually Kuon, but someone else. Unless, I don't know. I'm not really sure what's going on in Tegajun's head as far as things are concerned. Now, according to Tegajun, so the Monozukuri no one used to be a genius engineer. So we don't actually see this person, like only a blurred silhouette of this scientist engineer. But this Monozukuri no one actually has memories of what seems to be a little girl, and the little girl waves at this Monozukuri. The little girl waves, calling out "Mama." So apparently, the Monozukuri no one had a daughter. Okay, so she had a daughter, and we don't really know the details because we don't see anything about this Monozukuri no one's backstory other than that this used to be the, I don't know, like again, a scientist, an engineer who most likely rather has knowledge about AI and stuff. And after losing her daughter, so she went. So this is just me filling in the gaps because again, the show doesn't really provide us with a lot of direct information. So again, I'm just piecing together what I can find. So this scientist loses her daughter, and in her, you know, deep sadness, uh, she creates Tegajun and by extension the whole of Brighton and the rest of the No One monsters. And she herself ends up becoming the Monozukuri no One, given her nature. Like she created AI. Now we do know from again, Tegajun herself mentions that she is a copy, basically, of Tegasword. So again, this is just me trying to you know connect the dots, trying to connect the dots, and based off of what we know so far. So this scientist may have come across some, some writings regarding Tegasword. I mean, in the Bakugami household, Ryugi has found like what seems to be like ancient writings that are pertaining to Tegasword. So this is what caused him to, become a believer in Tegasword. So, you know, uh, like as a kid, he would find what seems to be the equivalent of the Bible, and from then on, he became deeply religious. So there may be other pieces of writings about Tegasword that are out there, and presumably, or again, I'm just personally assuming rather, that this engineer who created Tegajun had found something, you know, related to Tegasword. So she might have read something, and this gave her an idea, you know, if she can copy Tegasword's power, then it could probably bring her daughter back. So she creates Tegajun, and again, by extension, the Briden, or rather, she creates Tegajun, and Tegajun ends up creating Briden and the No One monsters. So again, given Tegajun's power, so she actually, I don't know, turns this engineer into the Monozukuri no One, and you know, everything goes off from there. So in the end, Monozukuri no One, like the Gozyugers challenge her to several different rounds of like making stuff, but considering that again, the Monozukuri no One's power allows her to create things out of nowhere, so the memory of her daughter triggers her power, and goes haywire, like creating clones of people out of nowhere. You know, basically like all of this AI slop that we've seen, like uh, things in places that where they shouldn't be. But that causes Tegajun to crown this no one monster to be the winner, and ultimately chooses her as the perfect pilot. So even though the Gojoogers actually destroy this monster in like normal combat, so like the hand that remains actually was able to regenerate the whole monster, and seeing again, this is the perfect opportunity for Tegajun. She absorbs the um, Monozukuri no One, and I guess this is where Tegajun was supposed to become more powerful, but not necessarily, in my opinion. Now, on the side, so we also see, um, you know, Likuo and Bouquet. So this is where their story actually moves forward. Now, in episode 40, so of course, we see them together in the haunted house. So this is again where a big step in their story comes in. So we do know that Tegajun created another Bryden general called Ribbon, and again, Ribbon seems to have an agenda of her own, something that even Tegajun doesn't really know about. Now, what happens is, so Diko ends up battling Ribbon inside their own robots. Of course, Nico pilots Tega's Sword Blue, and Ribbon has her own robot. And what happens is, Nico was able to deal like great damage to Ribbon's robot, and behind, the like in the cockpits of the Bryden robots, they have this large ring at the back where we've seen like a bouquet, uh, fire candle. So usually it's either one of them. So if the robot receives enough damage, so they can escape through the back. However, in this battle, so their escape hatch, their escape portal, or particularly Ribbon's escape portal on her robot, gets destroyed, and she's unable to escape. Therefore, basically, she ends up dead in the process. And, you know, even though she has been actually mean to Bouquet, at least like not in a very obvious sense. So Bouquet still cares about her. Basically they're both creations of Tegajun, and in a way they are sisters. But yeah, like it was actually more of a one-sided bond because Bouquet loved her sister so much, but Ribbon actually never cared about it. But nonetheless, Bouquet grieves the loss of her sister, and then she also sees Diko, and in that battle. By the way, so both, well, yeah, Ribbon's robot was destroyed, but Tega's Sword Blue was knocked down, and therefore Diko gets ejected. Now, Bouquet is ready to fire at the person who basically killed her sister, and again, seeing that it was Dikuo, so she begins to have mixed feelings. Again, we as the audience have seen them battle inside, their robots for quite some time, but this is the moment when um, Bouquet finds out that the pilot of Tega Sword Blue, Goju Leon, is in fact Dikuo himself. So again, this is really the point where things start moving way forward in their own story, which I really have been following from very early on. So, of course, we've seen like in episode 2, like uh, you know, Bouquet just suddenly passes by in front of like Nico's live concert, which in fact was part of a number one battle at that time, and she is completely starstruck. So she has been a fan of Nico, but she never knew that Goju Leon and Nico were the same person, because at some point, you know, Nico and Bouquet had some sort of battle in their robots, and uh, like inside of Bouquet's robot, so in the cockpit, there were actually like Nico memorabilia inside, and one of the pictures was severely damaged in the battle. Therefore, she had hatred towards Goju Leon. Again, at that point, she doesn't know that Nico and Goju Leon were one and the same just yet. So again, fast forward to episode 41, and this battle with Ribbon finally reveals the whole truth that the person that she hated, the person that Bouquet hated, was also the one that she loved the most, right? So of course, like I wouldn't mean it in like an idol and a fan type of relationship, but there's definitely something more in there. So this is where episode 42 comes in, and this I think would be the highlight of the show, because we do see here that uh, so the Gozyugers are actually transported into the no one dimension. So again, this is where a lot of the conflict takes place. So uh, we do understand. So Hoeru has been there before, but for the rest of the Gojoojers, it's their first time in there. So they take this opportunity to storm the enemy base and try to take down Bryden once and for all. And like going back to my point here, with Bokeh and Rikuo. So again, they do battle in their giant robots, and of course, Bokeh was, uh, very much sworn to vengeance at that point. So she doesn't care that Riko is, Goju Leon. She knows of that fact, but she chooses revenge. However, Riko, seeing Bokeh as a loyal fan, he doesn't want to hurt her. Of course, he didn't know that Bokeh was Bryden at that point as well. So again, it was in episode 41 that they have actually learned of each other's true identities and their true affiliations. But Diko doesn't want to hurt Bokeh, despite learning of the fact that she is a Bryden. And in true Gojuger fashion, you know, you know, as they would save anyone from, like being possessed by a no one monster. So what Nico does is that, if you remember, like Tegasword Blue's configuration, so the right arm becomes like a gun. So the parts of the, like Leon Buster become the right arm of the Tegasword. But what Rico does is he changes it back to the typical Tegasword arm. Actually, for reference, like I have my own Tegasword here, So, of course, he takes off the arm, so you place it with the Leon Buster. But Rico changes it back to this sword configuration and thrusts it into the abdomen of, Bokeh's robot. And again, as they would save people from uh, the no one monsters, so Rico tries to save Bokeh in the same way by pulling her out of the robot. And yeah, I'm really glad that Toei chose to save Bokeh in this situation. It's definitely um, like a payoff, if you will, especially for those who ship Diko and Bouquet. So again, seeing Diko successful in saving his true fan, I guess, like his number one fan. So again, at least we can see a happy ending for them. Now, like on the other side of the episode, so uh, Tegajun kidnaps Gudeburn, still calling him Tega Naguru, and treats him like a baby. So, I guess Tegajun really doesn't understand what being a mother is, and yet technically, Gudeburn is an infant, but given that he has the consciousness of a teenage boy, I guess, uh, like he does have his rebellious phase. like, but even so, like, Gudeburn actually chooses to, save his mother. So what he actually does is, like, he tries to make a scarf as a present for her. So by the way, like the Gozyugers are able to save Gudeburn from being captured in episode 42. So I'm actually talking about episode 43. I'm sorry, but yeah, in episode 42, uh, Tegasword kidnaps Gudeburn, but the Gozyugers are, very much successful in rescuing him. Albeit, to be specific, it was like Hoeru and um, Mashiro. So like both of them again say were able to save Gudeburn from Tegajun, or at least from being treated as a baby. But again, this would connect into episode 43, where like we actually see, you know, like the progression, especially with Kuon's story. So near the end of episode 42, so Kuon like sounds an alarm informing everyone that someone has broken into the Bryden base to take all the Sentai rings they have collected so far. And in that case, that would be the Gozyugers. However, while everyone storms out in order to chase the Gozyugers, so Kuon is left in the room with Tegajun, only to reveal that he has all of those rings all along. So he wanted to distract everyone out of the way so that he can exact his plan. So by collecting uh, all of the Sentai rings, or by trying to hoard of all of the Sentai rings that they have so far, so on the Brighton side, Kuon becomes more powerful than Tegajun and actually absorbs her into him for more power. So we do know that in episode 39, so this is where Kuon's backstory is revealed. So how he became Kuon, how he became Garyudo in general. So the moment he received the Tegajun ring, so he was also given a curse that I guess would kill him if he ever betrayed Tegajun. And this actually was kind of reminiscent to me of Lightspeed Rescue. So Ryan Mitchell, aka the Titanium Ranger, so he had a tattoo on his back that would slowly crawl to his heart, and if it does, it would kill him. So something similar was given to Garyudo. So he had a cross on his back. So we do see it, activated by Tegajun from time to time if ever Kuon went out of line. So by absorbing Tegajun, he doesn't actually recover from this curse, but he becomes so powerful that the curse would not affect him anymore. So he just became more powerful than the curse that was technically still in him. So there's, I guess, some sort of visual change as well. So we do know that Kuon has like some white streaks on his hair after becoming Garyudo, but now his hair is longer on one side, and like his left eye changes color to signify that the Tegajun is inside of him. So those two changes, and when he transforms into Garyudo Tegajun, I guess. So, well, this change is very minor. He just gets a new cape, basically. So he takes over Brighton, and this is basically where most of episode 43's conflict comes from. So there are basically two aspects in this. So of course, this is more of a Kuon focused episode. So he gets his one-on-one match with uh, Hoeru, of course. So given that they're brothers, they are definitely tied to one another, and yeah, this big one-on-one between them was really inevitable. So what impressed me the most in this battle, this duel between Hoeru and Kuon, is that Hoeru was using the Wild Gojuger ring not the not the Ryo Tega sword. So I believe it was Ryugi's chance to use that. So while Ryugi was using the Ryo Tega sword, so finally he had his dream of becoming one with Tega sword. So again, I am impressed that Hoeru was able to, stand toe to toe against Kuon using the Wild Gozyuger ring when Kuon basically had the power that's supposed to be equivalent of having built Tegasword. So what do I mean here specifically? So we do know that when each of the Gozyugers use the Tegasword, so the spirit of Tegasword is actually in each of the Gojooters. So, like, Tegasword can possess each and one of them. We only see this with Hoeru, though, but it is theoretically possible with the rest of the Gojooters as well. I'm just assuming. So, we don't see Tegasword actually possessing the consciousness of the other Gojooters, only Hoeru, but you know, I would say the same, about Kuon's Tegajun form, or rather Tegajun power up. So again, Kuon is supposedly more powerful after absorbing Tegajun, but Hoeru puts up a really, really good fight. Again, they are basically fighting on equal terms, even though, again, Kuon was fighting with a power of two, given Tegajun was inside him this whole time. But he's still frustrated that their match ended in what was basically a draw. So, speaking of actual Tegajun herself, so well, she is absorbed by Kuon, so she was actually let out to battle Tegasword and Gudeburn. But what Gudeburn does is that, in between episodes 42 and 43, so he actually made a scarf. So instead of trying to defeat Tegajun normally, so what he does is try to save his mother by, again, using this scarf and, the power of family. So Tegasor joins in on the battle, trying to help Gudeburn. Again, they are a family technically, so uh, like, fine, I will help you save your mother. And yeah, after Gudeburn actually wraps the scarf around Tegajun's neck, so she calms down and decides, ah, like, it's all done. Like, I'm just gonna stay here with my family, and we're gonna be one big happy family. And they become one big happy family. That's what I'm trying to say here. So yeah, their family is complete. Tegajun just says, you know what, I'm done with this Bryden business. Like, you can do your own thing now. So, uh, like, she joins, again, Tegasword and Gudeburn, and just stays in this dimension where they're at. So, uh, again, Bouquet, well, is unconscious, so she is kind of saved as well after, again, battling Rikuo. And Shining Knife and Sweet Cake also decide that, if their queen doesn't want to fight anymore, then they're also gonna stop fighting as well. However, Fire Candle doesn't want any of that. He's still loyal to the Bryden cause, and feeling betrayed by his own creator, his own queen, like, he sets off on a rampage inside his robot, and one of the fireballs that Fire Candle's robot sends out actually was headed towards Hoeru and Kuon. So in order to save Hoeru, so Kuon takes that blast and ends up losing his life. So in the end, Kuon still loves his brother, and that's uh, like how their big one-on-one actually ends. Although technically it was a draw, but Kwon decides to sacrifice himself to save his brother because in the end, he still loves his brother. So again, basically what happens is Fire Candle goes back to his, to the Brighton base, but he's all by his lonesome. Again, uh, Tegajun decides to stop fighting, and so do Shining Knife and Sweet Cake. So of course, Bouquet would eventually come back to consciousness and would also choose to live amongst humans, especially with Rikuo. So this is probably where the next conflict is going to happen. So I would say like episodes 41 to 43 of Gozyuger have been quite a roller coaster in my opinion. So we've seen really big like leaps forward in terms of the plot, considering that the show is going to end in probably a month. So again, as of this recording, it's already January 4th. Episode 44 is out. Again, we see like the last of the Sentai rings. Again, Kaku Ranger and King Oger. By the way, we kind of see what happens with the King Oger ring in episode 44, but I will talk about that in a separate video if you would like. But so far, again, things have been moving forward real big time. So we do see somewhat like a conclusion of at least three conflicts in the show. So we do get to see how Rikuo versus we do get to see how Rikuo and Bouquet's story would end. I mean, they're still around, of course, but like their conflict is over. It's resolved. You know, also, like the Tegasword family conflict resolved. Also, Kuon and Hoeru conflict resolved. And I guess in a way, Kuon does become an additional warrior in this, in a way. So, while I have mentioned, uh, again, Kuon sacrificed his life to save Hoeru, he does come back at the end of the episode as a recolored Wolf de Caliber 50. Now, we do know that Kuon himself as Garyudo used a recolored version of, the Wolf de Caliber. However, the blade seems to be of a violet uh, orientation, while keeping the black and red aspects of it. So the blade like they do replace the violet parts with white parts, but it's still again another recolor of the Wolf de Caliber 50. So it's a sentient weapon that uh, sticks around Hoeru, like floating around. Like even Hoeru says, like, hide yourself. Everyone's gonna see you. But Kuon doesn't care. He just floats around, like, even like Saori, the owner of the apartment and the Tegasword Cafe. So she isn't shocked, but she rather calls Kuon as an impressive toy. Like, wow, toys nowadays are so impressive. But she doesn't know that it's actually a human inside of a weapon. So this is how Kuon becomes an additional member of the Gozyugers. So yeah, again, I'm actually kind of glad to see that at least these three, uh, you know, conflicts resolved as of this point. Other than Fire Candle, Brighton itself is basically finished. And I guess I would add a bit of like a theory at this point regarding Fire Candle. So, uh, we are going to see, by the way, a new calamity come out. So the third calamity that will come out again, I will talk about in the next episode. But I believe that the fourth and final calamity, so Cladis, if you know, if he is going to return. So Cladis was basically the calamity that Mashiro and Tegasword had sealed, before the events of Gozyuger. So I'm pretty sure Cladis is going to come back, and you know, again, a very angry fire candle is going to team up with Cladis, and basically, I would see fire candle, become like Rei Gushima when Rei allied himself with Belun. So I would see the same thing. I can see the same thing happen with the fire candle as well. So, what do you guys think? Tell me in the comments. Again, Gojuger has been really fast paced in terms of their episodes, but again, I do like that they have concluded at least three conflicts in the story. So, yeah, I am planning to talk about episode 44 anyways, but let me know what you think of episodes 41 to 43 down in the comments. Again, thank you so much for watching. As always, please do leave a like, comment, share, subscribe, and don't forget that notification bell so you get the latest from JEFusion. This has been Philip, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!